Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do this really easy hoodie. Now this little hoodie, you can put the hood on it, or you can actually just do maybe 4 or 5 rounds and fold it over and do it a cardigan with a big collar. But I've turned this one into a hoodie. Now the pattern on this is the same as that sunshine granny with a twist blanket that I did, so that'll match that as a little set. If you put the blanket, make the blanket big enough to fit over a stroller or a pram, a pushchair, whatever, and this little top will match it. I've got 5 easy buttons. You don't even need buttonholes. The way I've done the rib, you can easily get a decent sized button through the gaps on there. Now in the description, I did the 3 to 6 months. I'll put the stitch counts for all the sizes in the description and onto a pinned post in the comments if you want to make this bigger. Now the easiest way to make it either smaller or bigger is change your hook. The yarn I used for this was this one. It's a double knitting yarn. That's a weight 3. You can use any yarn. Now don't think, oh, that's far too big for a 3 to 6 month old baby. This is going to go over the top of the clothes. It's like a little jacket and it's really sweet and it's easy as well. So we're going to start the square yoke, and it's done in 2 different rows. You'll do 1 row which is a UK double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA, and the following row will be a row of UK treble crochets. That's double crochets if you're in the USA. I'm going to do what I've worked out to be the first size, and I'll put the other size, the amounts of stitches, in the description. So the first size I'm going to do is 0 to 3 months. We're going to chain 48 stitches. So put your yarn over and we're going to chain 48 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've done a chain of 48 stitches. We're going to go into the 4th stitch in the chain. So count 1, 2, 3 and 4. Into the 4th stitch, we're going to do 1 row of UK treble crochets. So the first row, there's no increasing, there's just 1 row of UK treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. So go into the 4th stitch and do your treble or double crochet, whatever it is in your country. Put 1 into each stitch along. So I've done my first row and I've got 46 stitches left from the 48. We used a few of the stitches to do that very first stitch when we went into the 4th stitch, and we used up 3 of the stitches doing that. So we started with 48 and we've now got 46. So the next row, you're going to chain 1. Now that is not a stitch, so don't count that, and turn your work. Now we're going into the very first stitch here, into this stitch here. We're going to do UK double crochets. Now these are single crochets if you're in the USA. So we're going to work 8 stitches along. So we're going into the first space. So that's 1 into the next one, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now into the next one, you're going to put 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch. So we've made a V stitch, what's called a V stitch. We're going to work 5 stitches along. We're going to do the shaping of the yoke. So we're going to work 5 along. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Into the next stitch, you're going to do that small V stitch again. So that's 1 double crochet, that's a single if you're in the USA, chain 1 and put 1 more into that same stitch, and you've made a little V stitch. We're going to work 16 stitches across. So we worked 8 and then did a V stitch. We worked 5 and then did a V stitch. So we're going to work 16 across. So 1 into that one, that's 1. 1 into the next one's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. Then we're going to put a V stitch in, so that's 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch, all into that next stitch. Then we're going to work 5. We're going to work 5 along, so 1 double or single crochet into the next 5 stitches. So that's 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 5. And we're going to do a V stitch. We're going to do a V stitch in the next stitch. 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch. And you should have 8 stitches left. We're going to work 8 along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 1 there. 7, and 1 in the top of that chain is 8. Now this yoke I'm showing you, you can use this yoke. You can do extra rows to extend it for bigger sizes, and you can use this yoke for hoodies, for cardigans, for dresses, for lots of different things. So I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2, just 2, and turn. So that's going to count as my first stitch. So we'll skip that stitch. We're going to do UK treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA, and we're going to work along to that first V stitch that's there. You can see where it is in your pattern. So 1 UK treble crochet into each stitch. That's a double crochet if you're in the USA. 1 into each stitch until you get to that V, that little V stitch, and that's the little V stitch there. We've worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 stitches. Now you've got your stitch, your chain 1 and your stitch in this V stitch. So you're going to work 1 into the stitch. So that's going to make 9 stitches along. So you've got your chain of 2. That counts as 1 stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that one's 9. Now into the chain space, you're going to put 2 treble crochets, 1 chain and 2 treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. So into the chain space, You might have to just squash it in. So 1 and 2, chain 1 all into the same stitch and put 2 more. 1 and 2. And that's made a double V stitch here. Now we're going to work along. Now you should have 7 stitches. We did 5, but we've also got the stitches from the V stitches. So into the next stitch, that's 1. You should have 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 more in there. Work along to your next V stitch. So remember and put a stitch in the stitches of the V stitches that we've got here. So into the chain space, wriggle into the chain space, we're going to put 1, 2 stitches, 1 chain, and 2 more stitches. 1 and 2. Now we're going to work our way along to the next one. And remember the stitch that's in the V stitch. So remember the stitch that's here on this side. You've got your stitch from that V stitch. Remember and use that. So work our way along. We should have 18. So remember and work the stitch of that V stitch. Then into the little chain space, we've got a little chain space in there, in the middle of that V stitch. We're going to put 2 treble crochets, 1 and 2, chain 1 and 2 more. So when we're doing the bigger stitches, we're putting 2 and 1 chain and 2 stitches. So we're going to work our way along to the next one. So work along. So remember the stitch from the V stitch. Then into the little space in between them, in between those stitches, you're going to put 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches. So 1 chain and 2 stitches. And then work along. You should have 9 along here now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 into that last stitch. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn. And this is what you have. So this is what we have. This is going to be the front and this is the back. So we're going right into the very first stitch and work along to our corner. Work one into each stitch along. Now in the chain you're going to put one stitch, one chain and one stitch in the corner, and then work along to your next corner. So in the V-stitch, one stitch, one chain and one stitch, and work along. You do that right along your work. So work along, and when you get to the corner, one stitch, one chain and one stitch, and then work along to this corner, one stitch, one chain and one stitch, and then work to the end. So when you do the small stitch row, you're only doing one chain and one into the corners. So this is what you've got after row 4. You'll see it's starting to turn into a square. You're going to alternate between UK double crochet rows and treble crochet rows. And if you're in the USA, that's between single crochet rows and double crochet rows. And you're going to work up until you get to row 10. You'll work 10 rows. So we've done 1, 2, 3 and 4. We're going to keep doing this until we've done 10 rows. So I'm going to chain 2 when you're doing your treble crochet row. When you're doing the UK treble crochet row, you'll chain 2. When you're doing the double crochet row, you'll only chain 1. So we're going to work our way along. Make sure you use the stitch as well into that little V-stitch. So we're going to work 1 UK treble crochet. Skip the first stitch with this one because that belongs to that. So 1 into each stitch along. Now into the chain 1, because we're doing the treble crochet row, you put 2 in. 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches. So 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches. Then work 1 stitch in each stitch along. And you'll get to your next V-stitch, 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches, and work along to the next one. 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches, work along to the next one. 2 stitches, 1 chain and 2 stitches, and work to the end. Then you'll chain 1 and turn and do 1 row of UK double crochets. That's single crochets if you're in the USA. And when you're on that smaller stitch row, you only put 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch in the corners. So when we do the next row, into this one we'll just do 1 stitch, 1 chain and 1 stitch when we're doing the UK double crochet row. So you can see you've got a small row and a larger row. And this is row 5. work your way all the way along the way I've shown you. So I've done row 10. I've done up to row 10 and I've got 150 stitches. So you should have, for this first size, 150 stitches. And there is a different stitch count for the bigger sizes. I'll put them in the description. Now the next row, I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and I'm going to put 1 UK double crochet all the way across to the corner. We're going to make the sleeves, so we're going to join these 2 corners together to make the armhole. And if you're in the USA, these are single crochets. We're going to put 1 into each stitch all the way along. So 1 into each stitch. Now I'm going to take my pin out. Now in that little chain space, I'm going to put 2 stitches. 2 stitches. Now I'm going to chain 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Now fold your piece in half, and what you're going to do is you're going to join this corner. So take your pin out. We're going to skip all those stitches, so just fold your piece in half, and you're going to go in to the little chain space on this corner and do 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Now we're going to work our way along this long length of the back. I'll put 2 stitches into the corner and chain 5, and then I'll join it to this corner here and then work along to the end. So 1 stitch in here, 1 in each stitch all the way along to the other corner. So I'm nearly at this other corner. You can take that pin out. I'm going to join this corner to this corner like this. So I've went right across the back. We're joining them at these corners. So in the chain 1 space in here, I'm going to put 2 stitches, 1 and 2. I'm going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and then bring this corner down. Bring this corner, and that's going to be an armhole. Take the pin out. Take your marker out. Make sure it's not twisted, and go into the chain space here in this corner and put 2 stitches in. So 1 and 2, and we're going to work our way along to the end. 1 stitch, 1 UK double crochet, that's a single crochet if you're in the USA, 1 into each stitch along. Now this is what we have. We've now got our body joined together, and that's going to be your sleeves. That's going to be your sleeves. We're going to chain 1 and turn around. Now into the first stitch you're going to put 1 double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Into the next one you're going to put 1 double crochet, or double or single, whatever country you're in. Now you're going to chain 2. We're going to start doing this pattern. So chain 2, skip 2 and put 1 double crochet. So chain 2, skip 2 and 1 double crochet, chain 2, skip 2 and put 1 double crochet in, chain 2, skip 2 and 1 double crochet all the way around, all the way around. So chain 2, skip 2 and 1 double crochet, chain 2, skip 2 and in. And these are single crochets if you're in the USA. Skip 2 and in, chain 2, skip 2 and in, chain 2. So we've got 2 here to skip, and we're going to put a double crochet in the first one in this chain. Now to get across here, we're not going to chain 2. We're going to work along 1, you should have 5, 1, 2, 3, I've got 4 because I used one. So just work along to here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a chain 2, skip 2 and do your double crochet, chain 2, skip 2 and work your way along, 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2. If you're only managing to skip 1, if you've got an odd number here, you can just do a chain 1 and skip 1. So I'm going to do my skip 2 and I'm going to work along these stitches. I should have 5 stitches along, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. I'm going to go in just to that last stitch there. I'm going to do my chain 2, skip 2 and work along to the end, chain 2, skip 2, chain 2, skip 2. Just fit it in the best you can. Skip 2 and I'm going to put 1 stitch into my last 2 stitches. Now if you don't have enough here, what you can do is just do a chain 1 and skip 1, but as long as you do 2 stitches here at the end. Now this is what we have. Don't worry if it's curling, that'll get straightened out when we do the band. Now this is what we have. We've got our armholes for your sleeves, and it's going to be a hoodie, so you need your sleeves a little bit wide so that if your baby's got other clothes on, then you can do this. I'm going to start the pattern now. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and that's my first stitch. Now turn around, and what you're going to do into that same stitch, put 2 more UK treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip that stitch and skip that chain, and into this stitch here. We're not going to use any of the chains, just the stitches. You're going to put that granny cluster. So that's 1, 2, and 3 into that double crochet there. It's a single crochet if you're in the USA. Skip over the chain and do the cluster in that double crochet or single crochet, whatever country you're in. Skip the chain and do your granny stitch, that cluster of 3 into there, and you'll do that all the way along until you get to under the arms. So into the double crochet there, one into that one, just put one into each double crochet, just like this, the same way we did for the blanket. And move along, put one in that end one there. Now what you're going to do for this chain where the arm is, you're going to skip one and put a cluster in. And 3. You're going to skip one and then put a cluster in there. So have at least 2 clusters under the arm. So that one will belong to there. So put in that chain, put at least 2 clusters. So we've got a skip there and we've got a stitch here. So we're going to put our cluster in that end. One into each of the stitches. Just skip over the chains. So I've worked my way right around to under the arm again. So I'm skipping the chain. I'm going to skip one, just skip one and do one cluster in here. This is under the arms. Skip one and then do one cluster there. So I've got 2 underneath the arms. Do my next cluster and work one into each stitch around into these double crochet stitches. We're skipping the chain, so skip the chain and work your granny cluster in. So I'm going to skip the chain and skip one stitch, and just into the last stitch we're going to do our granny cluster. 1, 2 and 3. So we're going to do the chain stitch again. I'll show you how to do that, and then you'll do your granny clusters in the stitches, not the chains. So chain 1 and turn. So I'm going to put a double crochet, that's a single if you're in the USA, into the first 2 stitches, one into that stitch and one into that stitch. Now what we're going to do is these 2 stitches here, we're going to skip those. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 and do a double crochet. And when you do your double or single crochet, you should end up in the middle of your granny cluster. So skip, we've done our chain 2, skip 2 and do your double crochet. Chain 2, skip 2, and it should bring you into the middle stitch of your granny cluster there. Chain 2, skip 2 and into your granny cluster. You're going to do that all the way around now, and these are the 2 rows you'll keep repeating until you've done 10 patterns, until you've done 10 sections of the pattern. So 1, 2 and in, chain 2. I'll show you how to do over the arm there. So skip 2 and do your double crochet in that middle stitch, chain 2, skip 2, work your way around, and you should be putting that double crochet into the middle stitch of your granny fan, that little granny stitch. So chain 2, skip 2 and work in to the middle, into the stitch, chain 2, skip 2 and into that middle part of the cluster, into the top of the middle stitch. 1, 2, skip 2 and in. So I'm at my last chain 2, skip 2. I'm going to put a double crochet into the middle stitch of this last fan and 1 into the corner of that last stitch. So you'll always put 2 stitches at the beginning and at the end. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. And that's the pattern starting to work. So they're the 2 rows you'll keep repeating. So into that same corner, 2 more UK treble crochets. Now these are double crochets if you're in the USA. We're going straight over to that stitch, skip the chain and go over to here and put a cluster in. And that's what you'll do until you've got 10 rows of pattern. And you'll finish on that cluster pattern, that cluster row. So you'll continue doing that until you've got 10 sets done. So this is what we've got. I've done 10 rows of the pattern. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the rib. I'm going to put 3 rows of the ribbing on for the bottom of this. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3 and turn. Now around each of these posts we're going to be doing a front post and a back post. So put your yarn around, and what we're going to do here is we're going to go around the front of the stitch. Put your hook right through the back and bring it through the front. Pull your yarn through and up. And now we're going to do one through the back. So yarn over and come through from the back and scoop up that stitch and pull it up. Then the front, we're doing a front post and a back post, and it's called a UK treble crochet, and this is a double crochet if you're in the USA. One around the back and one around the front. So we're going around the front with this one, and this is going to make the rib of the hoodie. And around, and we're going to do 3 rows, and we'll see what it looks like. Around that one, then around the back, from the back, and work from the back. go around the post of your stitch and pull up, yarn over and go around the next stitch from the back, pull your stitch up and from the front, pull your stitches up, and that's going to make a rib. It's going to make a really pretty rib, and you're going to do 3 rows of that. So when you turn around, you're going to do the front post on the front and the back post on the ones that are at the back. So we'll get this round done, and I'll come back and show you how to start the next round. So one from the front and one around from the back. You're going around the post and around the front of that one, then around the back of that one, from the back and from the front. Pull your stitch up, and it's going to make this pretty rib. So I've done my front and back post all the way around, and I've done a front post and I've got one left, but I'm still going to go through from the back and pull up my yarn. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn my whole garment around. So we've got that first stitch. Now the next stitch is at the back, so we're going to start with a back post. So that one you can see it's at the back. So we'll do that as a back post and pull up. We're going to make this rib. So this one's at the front, so we'll do a front post. And then that one is tucked at the back, so we'll do that one, that's a back post. And it's going to make this really pretty rib. And you'll have that rib. Now I'm going to finish that row and see what it looks like. Now I did say do 3 rows, but do 2 and see what it looks like if it suits you. And if you need to do another one, if it's not long enough for you, you can do another one. You can do as many rows on this rib as you want. So I've done my border, my little rib border. I did 1, 2, 3, 4 rows, and I've done up the side. Now I'm going to show you how to do up the side. You'll do the same to each side of this. The hood, you'll do the hood once we've got the other side on, and then I'll show you how to do the arms. The arms, we're just going to go around and you'll make the arms as long as you need them. So for the side, what I did, I used a UK treble crochet. It's a double crochet if you're in the USA. So in the longer stitch here, I put 2 stitches, and then I put 1 into the joint where that 2 chain row is. I put 1 in there, 2 there, 1 in there. So 2 around this stitch and 1 into that little joint, that circle there. And you can use any yarn for this. Now right into the corner stitch, squish your hook through the corner stitch. I think the way this yarn's turning out is really nice, this yarn. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. Now around each stitch I'm going to put 2 stitches. So these are UK treble crochets. That's double crochets if you're in the USA, and I'm going to just check that I put 2. I put 2 into each of these stitches. So We need to make sure we've got 50 going up this way, because that's what we've got on the other side. And these are double crochets if you're in the USA. It's the same stitch. And 2 into this one. So I'm at this little single stitch here, so I'm going to put 1 in through there. And then we've got this longer stitch. This is a treble crochet from that fan. We'll put 2 in there, 1 and 2. I'm going to put 1 into that row there, 2 into the next longer stitch. So I've made sure I've got 50 stitches, the same as this one. Now it doesn't look as if it's the same because the stitch gathers it in a little bit. It's going to gather this in a little bit. Now, if your tension's different from mine, you might need to put more in or put less in. Depends on what your tension's like or the size that you're making. Just evenly put your stitches in and make sure that you put the same amount of stitches on each side. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3 and turn. Now I'm going to do 3 rows of that front post and a back post. So I'm going to start with the front post. Around the post, do a UK treble crochet, or that's a USA double. Now around the back of the next one, just the same as we did for the rib on the bottom. Back post. So it's front post, front post and back post. And I'm going to do 3 rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work all the way down. So I'm going to work all the way down, chain 3 and turn, and come back up and go down again. I'm going to do 3 rows, and that should make it the same size as this, because here I did 1, 2, 3 rows and that first row I've just done. So it works out as 4 altogether, but as you're picking up your row stitches and then 3 rows of that back post and front post rib. So I've got this edge finished. I just need to stitch in my tails. Now you can put the buttons on either side, and you can just get buttons that will just push through a hole. So I think this will take 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 buttons up here. Now I'm going to show you how to do the hood. Now when you've done that side, you'll do the same thing for that side. Just make sure the stitches you've picked up is the same number as the stitches on this side. Make sure you've got the same number of stitches, and it'll cross over whatever side you want to put your buttons on. So I'm going to show you how to do the hood. So I'm going to put another one into that stitch. We're going to increase every second stitch. So 1 into the next one, in between the stitches. Then I'm going to put 2 into this one, then 1, and 2 into the next one, then 1 into the next one, 2 into the next one, then 1 and 2. Do that all the way along. So I've done my 1 stitch and then an increase in the next stitch, 1 stitch and increase in the next stitch, and I'm at the end. I've put 2 in the last one. I'm going to put 1 just right in to the very edge of where the button band is. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to start the pattern. I'm going to work a double crochet into the very first stitch. I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, skip 2 and do a double crochet. These are single crochets if you're in the USA. We're going to do that chain round of the pattern. So chain 2, skip 2 and do a double crochet. We're going to do that all the way along. Skip 2 and double crochet. Chain 2, skip 2 and double crochet. I'm going to chain 3, so 1, 2 and 3 and turn. So we're going to be working in the stitches, not the chains. We're going to be working in the stitches. So that chain of 3 is my first stitch. I'm going to put 2 more in to that stitch to make my cluster. That will get tightened in when I sew that end in. So skip the chain and do your cluster in your next stitch. Skip the chain and then make a cluster in the stitch all the way along. And you'll just follow the pattern that we did on the body. So I've got my last double crochet and I'm going to put my cluster in. 1, 2 and 3. Chain 1 and turn my work around. So I'm going to put a double crochet in the first stitch. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA, and 1 in the second stitch. That's so it can bring us across here. We're going to do the chain 2 and skip 2 row again. So chain 2, you're going to skip 2 and it should bring you into the stitch, the middle of the cluster. So skip 2, you're doing 2 double crochets first, skip 2 and then in to the middle, the top of the middle stitch of each cluster. So chain 2, skip 2 and in to the top of the cluster with a double crochet. Chain 2, skip 2 and we'll work that chain all the way to the end and we'll do a double crochet into the last 2 stitches, chain 3 and then do the cluster row again, just like we did in the body of the hoodie. I've got my hood done and I've also done one sleeve. It's really easy. I'm going to show you how to do the sleeve as soon as I show you how to finish off the hood. Now I did 10 patterns on the hood. I did 10 of the patterns and each pattern's got 2 rows. So I'm going to turn it inside out and I'm just going to come across the top. I'm going to crochet along the top. So I'm going to go through my stitch and through the first stitch here and I'm going to join it with slip stitches. Just pull the yarn through there. Now go through the next stitch and the next stitch and just pull your yarn through and slip. Don't do it too tight. You'll do that each stitch along. Just pull your yarn through, then slip stitch it. So work your way along, picking up both threads of each stitch pull through and then pull through there. Just give it a little pull. You don't want it to be too tight. And make sure you've got it turned inside out. That's the outside of my little jacket. And pull through all the way along. And you'll just get a darning needle and you'll stitch in this tail end, and that's your hood closed like this. That's your hood closed for your jacket. Now what I'm going to do is along the edge, you don't need to do it, this has got a nice neat edge. Now the hood has a nice neat edge. It's up to you if you want to do a row of double crochet around the hood. I'm going to show you how to do the sleeve. So turn it any way you want. So what you're going to do is down in the middle here, we're going to go around and we're going to do that chain stitch. We're going to do the chain of the pattern. So I'm going to pull a stitch through and do one chain. Tighten that in. I'm going to go back in there into that stitch and do a UK double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. I'm going to tuck that little end down in there. I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. We're going to work in the round, and on this sleeve I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rounds of pattern. And then I did 1, 2, 3, 4 of the rib. If you want, you can start your hood further in and you could put a rib around the hood if you want. I'm going to skip 2 stitches and do a double crochet. Chain 2, I'm going to skip 2 spaces, do a double crochet, chain 2, skip 2 and do a double crochet. Now the double crochet is where you're going to put your fan for the pattern. On this one I have a way to get them even. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I've got 16 around here. So if I try and make sure I've got the same amount of double crochets, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to work my way around and hopefully I should have about 16. So just make sure you're working the same amount of fans, and that's going to go on to those double crochets. Your fans are going to go on there. So I'm going to commence the pattern now. So it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and into this stitch I'll put 2 more UK treble crochets. That's double crochets if you're in the USA. Move to my next double crochet stitch, or that's a single crochet stitch if you're in the USA, and work the pattern. So over to my next one and put my cluster in. 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 3. I'm going to work my way around these double crochet stitches, putting this granny fan stitch in. Put your granny stitch in. That's 3 UK treble crochets. That's 3 double crochets if you're in the USA. And when we get to here, we'll slip stitch and join around. I'll put a double crochet in here, chain 2, skip these 2 stitches and work the pattern. So I've slip stitched to close the round. So into this first stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet, into the second stitch, do a double crochet, just like we did in the rest of the pattern. I'm going to chain 2, skip 2 and make a double crochet, and that's a single crochet if you're in the USA. So chain 2, skip 2 and it'll bring you into the middle of your cluster. So you're going to do 7 rounds, and then I'll show you how to bring the last 2 rows in a little bit so that you don't have a big wide arm space, so you get a nice cuff on your jacket or your hoodie, whatever it is that you're making. Now you can follow this size and do a different stitch. You just need to ignore what I'm saying about the pattern, and you can put your own stitch in and make a different type of hoodie if you want. So I'm going to work 7 rows, and I'll come back for the last 2 rows and show you how to bring it in a little bit, just to reduce the stitches a little bit to make the cuff. I'm on my 8th pattern row. So after this one, I've got 1 more to do. So when you're doing your pattern and you've got your last stitch left of the pattern, to bring your sleeve in a little bit, I'm going to do a yarn over and go into there and pull a stitch through. I'm going to pull through them all and then leave it. I'm not going to do any more than that. I'm only going to do that 1 stitch. Then I'm going to slip stitch to this pattern here. And then we'll be skipping the 2 stitches and going in to the stitch above our fan. So chain 2, we're going to skip 2 and go into the stitch. And it should take you to, and you should be above the 3rd stitch of each fan. So chain 2, skip 2 and do a UK double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA, and work your way all the way around. So I'm going to work all the way around with my chains. Then I'm going to do the pattern into the stitches, and I'll do that little decrease at the end. At the end, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put 1 into the double crochet that'll be here and then move over. You don't need to do that. You can leave it like that if you want, but it's a little bit too wide. So I've come all the way around with the chain, and I'm going to slip stitch. I've done my 2 chain, and I'm going to slip stitch to this one to close that round. And I've got 1 more of the fan rows to do. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and build my first fan. I'm going to put 1 fan into each of those double crochet stitches, and that's a single crochet stitch if you're in the USA. So build your fan, one into each one. I'm going to work around and I'm going to put only one stitch in that last one and then move over, so that it's going to pull my sleeve in a little bit more. And then when we do the cuff is going to pull the sleeve in a little bit more again. So it won't be too big around the wrist of the baby or the child if you're doing the bigger size. So I'm doing my last full fan. I've got one stitch left, so I'm just going to put one UK treble crochet in there. And then I'm going straight over here and I'm going to join this, finish this round and join it. Now that's me got 9, the same as the other. Now that's me got 9, the same as the other arm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now I'm going to do 3 rounds of the cuff. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. Now that chain of 3 will go with that stitch. So this one we're going to go around the post, just like we did with the rib on the other parts of this garment. 1 to the back, then 1 to the front, and we're going around the back right through and pick up the post, pull your yarn through and up, and then the front. We'll do a front post stitch and a back post stitch all the way around. We'll join. I'm going to join the round to close the round off, chain 3 and do another 2 rounds of the rib. And I'll come back and I'll show you what the completed sweater looks like, or hoodie. Whatever way you've done the collar, whether you've put a hood on it or just a collar. And I'll need to go and find some buttons as well. So I've slip stitch to join that first round that I've done. Now I'm going to do 2 more rounds, so we'll just chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and you can see how that rib is pulling this open end in a little bit. So I'm going to do 2 more rows and I'll come back, I'll stitch all my ends in and I'll show you the completed hoodie. So this is my hoodie finished. I've sewed in all my ends. I've got my other arm done and I put some buttons on. Now I've sewed the buttons on and all I did was I just pushed the buttons through the gaps in the rib. These are small enough to go through the gaps in the rib like this. The hood turned out really well. I might just need to dampen it off a little bit and flatten it out on the top. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you click on the bell icon, YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. So until the next time, happy crafting, and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.